attitude of hospitals or the government shifted in the middle of the pandemic?
Hospitals, a little. Some are going to buy American. Some are going to buy some American. Some will keep doing what they're doing. The government isn't going to buy any more respirators, isn't going to stop China from sending masks here. I'm seeing it at a pretty close range because of what I do and how much I've been in the news. They call me, they talk to me. I'm seeing a lot of things that worry me. It's like giving a team of people a really important task, but they all have handcuffs on. There's certain things they can't do and certain things they can't say, and they work by committee instead of somebody that's decisive and smart and wise that just says, okay, here's what we need to do. Do you agree? Do you agree? Let's go. It's just all this committee speak. And it doesn't give me confidence that when we come out of this, we're going to have anything safer than what we have right now.
Well, Mike, they can study the problem.
They can.
Yeah, they're good at that. By the way, let me say something too. In 2006, President Bush put out his Presidential Directive 21, which was to have the government look at the pandemic plans that they had and make adjustments if there were gaps, because Katrina didn't go so well for him. So he put this out. And that's why H.H.S. came to see us in 2007, in November 2007. And I can send you the presentation. I have a presentation from H.H.S. that said the master plan is going to fail. Yeah, in 2007. And I can tell you this too, and I said this during my testimony before Congress. Robin Robinson, Richard Hatchett, and Rick Bright, they would all three fix the problem had they had authority. And Rick Bright at the end, in my testimony, a lot was made of my what I call my deep email. I sent in January of 2020. I sent Rick Bright an email and said we're in deep. The master plan is going to fail, and then he sent it up the ladder. And nobody did anything, and then that ended up in the whistleblower thing. But that's what that was all about.
So after the swine flu, the National Strategic Stockpile was depleted. It was never topped up. After the coronavirus pandemic, has that been topped up this time? Does that even matter if it is?
Yeah, they put some in, and there's an RFI out now, which I just submitted. They're going to buy 127 million more ear loop masks, which I and a bunch of other people are going to bid on. But
so you said 127 million. That's almost nothing. I mean, if there's 320 million Americans, then this is going to last a third of Americans one day.
Yeah, now they have some already. I don't know how much, but I think their thinking is just for healthcare. I don't think anybody's working on a plan to make sure all Americans have masks. And I could be wrong, but I haven't seen anything like that.
Is there a quality concern with the masks coming from China and Mexico? Because I know there's been some issues with counterfeit masks coming in.
Like fake N95 that aren't actually certified for that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There was a whole bunch of fraud. I was working with the FBI. I was being impersonated. We have a really good reputation, and I'm kind of all over the news. So people were impersonating me and trying to get people to send them money. In fact, one woman called me one day and said, I'm about to wire you $1.6 million. I'm just checking to make sure this is all legit. And I said, it's not me.
Oh my God!
Wow. Somebody in India copied our whole website and had they changed one letter in the word. Our address was prestigeameritech.com. They changed one letter and made their own website, and it was all of our stuff.
Wow. Hey, I know how we can fund this show.
Oh God.
There was a whole lot of fraud. Right now, though, for months I've been hearing crickets. Nobody's calling. Nobody wants masks.
Yeah, I was wondering, going back to what you said about California buying these N95s from China for $3 each, and you're selling them for 79 cents. It just seems insane. But Yeah.
Well, the government's very good at spending enormous sums of money when it's politically expedient.
Well, I heard somebody call it the money fan. I'd never heard that before, but somebody who dealt with the government said, yeah, if the money fan comes on, he said it's crazy. But yeah, now we haven't seen much of the money fan. We got a small FEMA contract. But what's ironic is the people who caused the problems are the ones benefiting. The people who left the country, all the big manufacturers, they're benefiting and getting big government contracts, and they caused the problem. They left America. They caused the problem. I warned everybody for 13 years, tried to get them to come back. They didn't come back. My predictions came true. They got rewarded. It's a little bit like a fireman who is an arsonist, goes and sets a fire and then gets a medal for putting out the fire.
It's like that Ray Bradbury book, Fahrenheit 451, right? Where the firemen actually set the fires.
Well, that's different because they're not really rescuing people.
No.
Yeah.
So,
But
I was thinking about 3M, right? Because they essentially got their operations in China essentially got nationalized
by the Chinese government.
Because they weren't allowing any manufacturers to ship out of the country. So they didn't learn their lesson.
No, and then here's another thing that happened too is when China, first of all, China cut us off. And then when they got their problem fixed, they flooded us with respirators and masks at ridiculously high prices because we couldn't get them, when I say America. So China is selling respirators to Gavin Newsom for $3 a piece. That probably cost them 30 cents to make. And morally, that's some pretty bad stuff going on that way.
Not to mention they were able to use that leverage to encourage the U.S. government to not look into the origin of the coronavirus too much.
Yeah, I don't know anything about all that, where it came from or whatever, but it's here, it's a mess. It's going to be a mess for a long time. Now it's affecting young people. And a lot of Americans think it's a hoax. I heard somebody got a blood clot, so I'm not going to get the vaccine. And what I say is, yeah, but it's like the guy who says, my uncle, if he'd have been wearing a seatbelt and hadn't been thrown free, he'd have died. So that's why I don't wear seatbelts. I mean, you know what? I call it the dumbass apocalypse. I have never seen more stupidity in my entire life. I mean, we all grew up getting vaccines, and you get your measles vaccine and your polio vaccine, and these things work and they save lives. And now we've got states having secret vaccinations so people won't be embarrassed to go get vaccinated.
You're beginning to remind me of Red Foreman a bit now.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the crazy thing about this is it isn't a partisan failing. Like, you've been talking to the Bush administration, the Obama administration, the Trump administration, now the Biden administration.
Yeah.
And it's like Cassandra, the Greek myth. I'm going to educate the audience about Greek mythology. She could see the future, but she couldn't get anyone to believe her.
And then there was the Trojan War.
Yeah.
Yeah, Congressman Sarbanes brought that up he said, you're Cassandra. And so did Marin McKenna. Here's somebody else you need to interview. You need to interview Marin McKenna. She is the author of the book Superbug, and she is a journalist. She's written for Wired magazine. She and I have been talking about this for 4 years. She did an article on me several years ago, and we kind of became colleagues or friends. Yeah, she's a pretty interesting person. But she said, yeah, you're like Cassandra. You tell the truth and nobody believes it.
Oh boy.
Gosh. How did Prestige Ameritech survive all these years?
Innovation and stubbornness. You
don't strike me as a stubborn person, really.
we had nothing else to. I mean, it was it. We had everything we owned that was invested into this, and we had a really good reputation. We used to make 87% of the mask supply. Our building used to make 87% of the mask supply. We worked for a company called Technol, Tecnol, back in the 80s and 90s. And Technol had 87% market share when Kimberly-Clark bought it in 1997. Several years later, Kimberly-Clark moved it to Mexico, and that same year, all of its competitors moved away. That's when and then a year or two later, we said, hey, this is a national security problem. Let's fix this. So we've been making masks for, I call my business partner, Dan, the last Jedi. This guy has forgotten more mask making. He's forgotten more about masks than most experts know. You know, he's been making masks literally since the early 70s when he was 16 years old.
Wow. So I guess the question is, what can anyone listening do? I mean, screaming into the void for decades sounds great, but what can we do?
Just individual Americans.
Yeah.
I don't have good news. I mean, yeah, I could say write your congressman, and then 100 people are going to do that, and it's not going to help. I don't think there's anything they can do. I just don't. I mean, it's depressing. It's depressing.
So then I guess the question is, what can we as individuals do to prepare ourselves for the inevitable, really bad pandemic that's coming?
Practice defensive driving. I mean, you know, if everybody else is going to be a crazy driver, you don't have to be. So, and again, here I am, a mask salesman saying buy masks. So it always looks like I'm trying to make money, but I'm not. We don't even sell to the public, hardly at all. We have a community service amount of masks that we sell, and if you go to our website, it's even hard to find, and they're really expensive because we don't want to sell them because we're not set up to sell one box at a time. We're set up to sell truckloads. Everybody ought to have some masks, and you know, it's like the government says, you ought to be able to survive for a couple of weeks with food and water and all that stuff. Put masks in your emergency kit, and buy them from somebody else so it doesn't look like I'm trying to sell you. But I think everybody just needs to realize that we're in a new era with global transportation systems like they are. Anything that breaks out anywhere is going to be everywhere, and when it happens, you can't buy masks; they're all gone, or they're $10 a piece. You know, a product that I'll give you one. 10 years ago was the last time the government bought from us. They never bought from us. Couldn't get them to buy from us. They're buying Mexican-made masks because they were cheaper. And they bought about 4 million masks 10 years ago. Didn't use them. Put them in warehouses. And about 2 years ago, they auctioned them off. And some knucklehead, whoever bought them, then when the pandemic started, they started selling them on eBay for 10 times the price and started selling them on Amazon. And listing Prestige Ameritech, new Prestige Ameritech masks. So protect yourself from COVID. First of all, the masks are 10 years old. They weren't made for COVID. We have no idea how they've been stored for 10 years. We don't have any idea if they're any good anymore. And I'll bet I had 1,000 people call me. What's the expiration date? Are these masks good for COVID? Blah, 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 blah. On masks that I sold the government 10 years ago, and the government sold to some knucklehead probably for nothing.
Wow.
I mean, again, it's surreal. This whole thing was surreal.
And we've learned nothing.
Who was it that said one thing people have learned from history is that we don't learn from history?
Very true.
Yeah.
It wasn't even that long ago.
What wasn't long ago?
I mean, I was just thinking about swine flu. It wasn't that long ago, but also we're still in the middle of the thing right now.
Yeah.
We're still in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
And we haven't learned from COVID enough to buy American masks.
Or even that this is warfare. The Chinese Communist Party is using this as a form of warfare.
Yeah.
But we can say buy masks for $8,000, $6,000.